Well, as the fighting escalates, hopes for a negotiated resolution look as dim as ever. Today, international diplomats failed to set a date for what is a widely anticipated peace conference on Syria. It was supposed to happen this month. Well, now it's been pushed back to July at the earliest. The West divided on the best way to end the war. Many countries hesitant to arm the rebels because of jihadists in their ranks. But our next guest tonight says there is a plan of action for the West that will achieve its goals. Michael Weiss is a columnist for Now Lebanon. He was in Aleppo last year and has covered Syria extensively. Michael, the perception by many in the West is that there is no good option in Syria. You say there is, and in fact the West must take action. Why?
Well, the option that's now most on the table, particularly being pushed by Britain and France, is to arm the Free Syrian Army. That is the vetted moderate forces on the ground headed by a man called Salim Idris, who's the general of something called the Supreme Military Command. General Idris has written numerous open letters to President Obama saying, look, Russia and Iran have no compunction whatsoever in continuing to back the Assad regime militarily, and yet we are bleeding and dying, and yes, indeed, our forces are being outnumbered now or outmaneuvered by radical jihadists, the kind of element that you want to avoid seeing take over Syria. So the question now lies, well, if we're going to give them arms, what kind of arms do they need most? And the answer is anti-aircraft arms. But of course we don't want to do that because that's what we did in Afghanistan, and that's how you had people like Osama bin Laden carrying around Stinger missiles. But the key goal for the opposition is to neutralize Syrian Air Force. This is not only because it's MiG fighter jets and attack helicopters that are bombarding civilian areas and bombarding rebel strongholds, but most crucially, Iran and Russia is transporting its material into Syria via the sky. So another option would be, instead of arming the rebels with anti-aircraft missiles...
Let me put this to you, Michael. Sorry,
Sure.
let me put this to you. Let me put this to you, Michael. How do you prevent weapons falling into the wrong hands? That is the crucial question, isn't it?
Yes, of course it is. And I'm sorry to say the answer is you can't. It is absolutely impossible to prevent that from happening. But then that raises another interesting question. If you don't want to give the rebels themselves the material to neutralize Syria's Air Force, then what else can you do? And one of the options that's been suggested, particularly by one think tank in D.C. called the Institute for the Study of War, is if you take out the runways inside Syria, not just in commercial airports, but also in the air bases themselves. If you destroy the infrastructure of the regime's air force, then Iranian and Russian planes have nowhere to land in the country, and Assad's military resupplies will dry up quite quickly. It's important to note, most of this stuff is not coming into Syria by the sea or by land. It's coming in through the skies.
Right. Michael, let me stop you there again, because we've seen Hezbollah's involvement in Syria. Is this a game changer? We've seen what they did in Qusayr.
Absolutely. The important thing to recognize, Becky, is that for the Assad regime, this is no longer about a conventional military counterinsurgency strategy. It's not the Syrian army that's leading the fight anymore. In addition to Hezbollah, which is an Iranian-backed Shia sectarian militia, there are there's a number of different sectarian militias on the ground now, also being trained by Iran, including Iraqi Shia fighters that have come across the border. Some of these guys are actually flown to Tehran and given intense guerrilla warfare seminars and then flown back to Syria. So Assad is now counting on, in effect, creating a sort of an army of proxy groups to carry on this campaign. Now, the real danger here is, I mean, we've been talking for months, if not years, about sectarian warfare. There's a very sensitive Shia shrine in Damascus called the Sayyid Zainab's shrine. If this is attacked, if this is blown up by any kind of Sunni element, a jihadist force, Al-Qaeda in Syria, you are going to see all hell break loose in this country. This will make Iraq in 2005 look like a walk in the park. And I mean, unfortunately, the Western strategy is let's have a conference with Russia and Iran. It's not going to work.